Today we're going to be talking about pruning the raspberries. Now let's have a look at the little guidelines. And it says in here, pruning raspberries, summer, cut out all of last year's stems and tie in this year's stems. And then autumn fruiting raspberries, cut all the stems off at the base level. Well, that is rubbish. We're not going to be doing it that way, and go over and prune them, and I'll tell you exactly why we're not following the normal convention. So let's get over to raspberry cage and start pruning. So let's take a look at this raspberry cane. So you can see this is this year's growth. It's not very impressive because they only just been sort of moved and they didn't grow very well because of the cold, the sort of wet at the start of the season, and then also a really dry summer. We didn't water them enough and they were a bit too densely packed. But this is a nice new stem, but you can see that this one here, you can see these are sort of quite flexy bendy, they've got a bit of stretch in them. Whereas this one here you can see is an old stem, so we're just going to take that off at the bottom. You normally tell old stems because when you bend them like this, they will just break if you put any flex in them. Whereas these ones, when you bend them, they're just there. Now what we're also going to do is each one of these plants, what we're going to do is just test this one. That's an old stem because I can feel it cracking, so take that one out. And then what we're going to do is we're going to keep this down to, this is quite weak, so we're going to keep it down to this 2 or 3 for each particular one. So here, see, this is a new stem, we'll keep that one. This is an old stem, we'll take that one out. This one's coming out the side, we don't want that. Look through these, as I say, they're all quite weak because that's an old one. We'll take that out. We'll take that little one out, and that looks like the strongest of the rest. And we'll take that out. So we'll get these 3. And then I'll move along and do the rest. Then the final thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to tie these in as best we can to the wire. Now what we'll do is, when we come to do next season's and we're tying in next season's canes, we'll use a different method. So we'll either change the tape colour in here or we'll tie them up with string, and that way when it comes to next year we'll know that all the ones that have got red tape on them are the ones that need to come out, and all the ones that have got new string or different coloured tape on them will be the ones that we need to prune out. So let's carry on and get those done. So that's the summer raspberries done. Now let's go and do the autumn ones and see why we're not going to do the normal method of just cutting them all off at the bottom. Okay, so these are our autumn ones. Before we start, let's just have a quick chat about raspberries in general. The rootstock themselves can be regarded as perennial. The canes themselves are actually biennial, meaning that, like in the summer case, that they'll grow canes and then they'll normally flower and fruit on last year's canes. Now it's actually true for autumn varieties as well. The only difference really is that the summer fruiting raspberries don't have a great deal of time to actually produce a full long cane before they have to try and set flower and fruit, which is why you leave last year's canes in to give them that head start, so that the shoots will come off of that last year's cane and carry on flower and fruit. Whereas with autumn varieties, because they flower and fruit so much later in the season, they've got the opportunity to actually produce a full cane and actually get that cane to flower and fruit all in one season. However, we know from just looking at them that our summer raspberries are in a little bit of a dire strait. They didn't get grow very well last year. Hopefully they'll pick up for next year. But we've got some all gold yellow raspberries here, and we've got these also, which I think are autumn bliss ones, which are prolific fruiters. So where we're sitting at the moment is that we might not get a great crop in the summer months, but we might have a glut of raspberries in the autumn. So what we want to do to prevent that this year is we're going to go through and we're going to trim out pretty much most of the canes. So we're going to trim this one down, and then what we're going to do is we're going to pick the strongest and the fattest cane. So that's going to be this one. Okay, and we're going to trim all the others down to ground level as you normally would, and we're going to leave this one in place. And what effect that will have is, rather than it putting all its energy into producing new canes for the autumn, some of its energy will get put into actually developing these buds. And what we will do is, although these are autumn raspberries, we will end up getting an early summer crop off of these, and we will also end up getting an autumn crop off of them as well. It's a shame to waste the summer crop. It would mean that we won't have quite as many canes or as vigorous canes coming up in the autumn, because it will need to put a little bit of energy into putting the flowering and fruiting on this cane. But it does mean that we're extending the growing season a lot more, and therefore we will actually guarantee to get both summer raspberries off the summer canes and some off of these autumn canes. And then once those are finished fruiting, the other canes will come in the autumn, and they will flower and fruit, and we'll get more fruit then. So although the advice is normally to cut autumn canes all the way down, if you want to have a bit of an earlier crop, my advice would be to actually leave a few of the actual canes in. So we're going to go along here and we're going to trim out all but the strongest cane from each one of these plants, and then we're going to keep that one to allow us to get some summer fruit. So as I say, next year for all these, as they grow up, we'll put them in with pegs like this or different coloured tape, and then we'll know exactly which ones the autumn ones we left and which ones we didn't. So that's why we're pruning our particular raspberries that way this year. If you've got some autumn raspberries and you haven't pruned them back, give it a try, and you'll be surprised that you'll get a lot more raspberries off of it, because you're extending the period instead of having a massive raspberries just all in the autumn, and you'll get some summer ones as well. So we'll tidy up all this mess, and that's a good job done.